Subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified about the highlights of India's smartest podcast, The Ranveer Show. This is TRS Clips. I'm asking you this as an engineering student. Like, imagine that you and me are in the same class and our exam's going to start in 15 minutes.
Right.
And I haven't understood a concept. So you tell me that concept really fast right now. Can you break it down in terms of what you mean by learning computer science first and then transitioning to AI? What I assume is you need to have experience with coding to be able to understand how that world works.
Right.
And then you have these additional sort of supplemental subjects, which are where NNFL and AI and all that comes in. Am I correct in saying this?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
But in general, like think of it like this. Programming or coding is nothing but just telling a machine what to do. Machines are actually really, really dumb at the core. You have to explain to them every single step. Like, just like, for example, when you're cooking food, you have a recipe. And recipe says, put this amount of sugar, this amount of salt. I don't know what I'm making. But I mean, there is a defined step-by-step guide to do things. You can't deviate away from that. There's no way to misinterpret it. Very similarly, coding is just a way of coding what you want the machine to do. And that requires you to first understand what can a machine do? How does a machine work internally? And then how do you codify this? And then how do you write a code? Who handles what? How does this code get executed? How does the machine show me this fancy output that I'm seeing in front of me? Once you start to realize that, then when I tell you, look, by the way, I can make the machine more intelligent by maybe taking care of these cases. Then AI starts to make sense to me. Okay. I already know how machines work. Now there's a small modification I can do, and hence AI, and hence things work the way they do. But if I directly jump to just here is a piece of code, apply this, and this image will get blurred out, that is not AI, because then all I'm doing is that there are a bunch of these pre-coded libraries that I'm just calling, and I can never innovate on top of it. That just makes me so very limited in the computer science career. I can never build a career out of it, because then that can never be my passion, that I know these 4 pieces of code and I can just call them.
So say someone actually wants to take up AI in life, okay? And suppose AI is going to be the mainstream thing in the world 10, 15 years from now. I'm sure that it is in many ways already.
Right.
The first step would be learning how to code. I'm assuming learning Java, learning C++, things like that. Starting right from there, learning more languages.
Right.
Then probably going to AI. But what other skills are required other than learning the basics of coding?
I think, again, like even the number of programming languages don't matter.
Okay.
Any one programming language is good enough. So one programming language, learn coding there, understand operating systems, how they work, understand just in general how distributed systems work. So what is distributed system? Essentially, all of the systems that we see around us, they have massive traffic. For example, YouTube. YouTube has so much amount of traffic. It cannot run on one machine. You'll have multiple machines taking all that traffic, right? So now when I move from one machine to multiple machines, what kind of changes need to be made, etc. That is distributed systems. So understand distributed systems. And then once you've done some bit of that, then you start to venture out into AI with the question of why. Anything that you're learning, you have to first understand the need for it. For example, if I say, look, here is an image, figure out how many rabbits are there in the image. Right? So now I start thinking about it. I mean, in this image, how is this image represented inside a computer? Is it a matrix? In that matrix, how can I go about identifying rabbits? What are the patterns I should be looking for, etc., etc. And then like finally I create my models. So, but like the first step is becoming really, really good with programming, operating systems, distributed systems, problem solving in general. Right? Look, before you go to AI, you actually have to take a lot of real world problems that you see around you and try to solve it using code. Because once you do that, then that part of your muscle is developed.
Could you give a small example? Like for
Yeah,
this?
let me maybe take a non-coding example. So there's an interview by Virendra Sehwag where he talks about how the entirety of the world perceives him to be very, very casual. Everybody believes he's super talented and hence he's such a good batsman. And he says like the reality can't be any different. I mean, he says like when I go to the field and I start thinking of what shots to play, then I usually start to mess up. So hence, I am a player who has to rely a lot on my muscle memory. So he said, like, my training regime is where a single day I will just practice one shot, like 12 hours straight. So imagine 12 hours straight, like almost 100 overs, just playing this one cover drive. And that helps him develop his muscle memory. And that takes a lot of hard work. That muscle memory development bit is required even for computer science. Before you get into the advanced stuff, you have to play your cover drives a lot of times. You have to play your straight drives a lot of time. You'll have to play your hook shots a lot of times. So there's a lot of practice, a lot of problem solving required in computer science before you jump to the fancier stuff. All of this gets skipped without guidance. And if you don't believe me, like, just maybe go and look up the backgrounds of every single machine learning or AI engineer working at Facebook or a Google or doing anything groundbreaking. You'll see that all of them were engineers in the past. All of them were software. Even this guy that I was talking about, Ajay Somani, he's actually from a machine learning background now in Instagram. But he was a software engineer to begin with. A really good one. And then became a machine learning expert.
So again, I'm gonna try breaking down coding for someone who's never encountered it from my extremely amateur, even pre-amateur perspective.
Sure.
So coding works based on, you know how you have words in the English language? So you have certain commands in code, which represent what that particular coding language is capable of doing. So say you're programming on Java, there are certain words you type into your computer to tell the computer to do certain things.
Right.
The second thing to understand is that the way a computer reads the code you entered is that it'll start from the top and start scanning everything that the coder has written. Okay, he wrote this here. Therefore, I will do this with the electronics in my system. Okay, next I have to go to this line. Okay, he's telling me to jump to this part of the code next. So I will go there. I will do that. Oh, now this part of the code tells me to jump back up. Okay, I will reread this again. And honestly, that's how much I know about coding.
And that is a lot.
Okay.
that is the essence of coding, yes.
Okay. Now, can you explain slightly deeper layers if you were explaining it to a 4-year-old, 5-year-old?
Right. So what you described is the flow of code, right? Essentially, there are these kind of commands. Imagine if you had a robot in front of you. There are these commands that I can tell my robot. And there is a sequence in which I'm telling the command. And by the way, this sequence is not fixed. You can also jump to other portions of the sequence, right? Now, that is great. But now when I give you a problem statement, for example, let's say I tell you, Ranveer, like, we're building LinkedIn, and LinkedIn shows me this person is my first degree connection, this person is my second degree connection, this person is my third degree connection. Now let's actually build out how to find what degree of connection is a person. Now to do that, what sequence of commands to apply, right? Given two users, let's say me and you. I know who are people connected to me. You know who are people connected to you, right? And then those people know who are people connected to them. How do I figure out what is the distance between us?
How many people are in between?
Right?
So let's say I know Sanjit behind the camera.
Correct.
There are 2 degrees of separation between you and Sanjit.
Right. So
because you know me now, I know Sanjit. Correct. And Sanjit knows Nachiketu is also in this room. So therefore, there are 3 degrees of separation between you and Nachiket.
That is correct. Now, what sequence of commands to write to be able to figure that out? That process is called designing an algorithm. So the next step is, like, how do you take real world problems around you and how do you design the algorithm or those sequence of commands to tell the robot to do, which solves your problem.
And then there's another part of that robot which will actually show it to the average user. Someone, say, who's a graphic designer, who's using LinkedIn to find someone else, and they find that someone else and they realize, oh, this person is my 4th degree connection. Actually, what's happened is that a coder has figured this out for your profile versus their profile, and then figure out a way to project it to you on screen.
Absolutely.
This is what coding is.
Absolutely. That is what coding is.
Okay.
Yes.
And then obviously the problems are infinite in terms of even if you just break down Instagram, someone who wants to go on Reels, they just press a button.
Right.
And then they scroll through their Reel feed. What they don't understand is that even for a particular Reel to be shown to you, Instagram has probably understood how your mind works over the 10 years that you've used Instagram and understood, okay, this person likes football And he likes basketball, but not as much as he likes football. Therefore, they'll show you 3 football clips and maybe 2 basketball clips or 1 basketball clip.
Absolutely.
But for that sequence of 3 football clips and 2 basketball clips, there's been layers of code that people like you, people like your other engineer friends have coded in.
Absolutely.
And
that is.
before you write a code, I'm assuming that the entire tech teams get together and plan this out. That let's make an addictive app called Instagram Reels. Let's get people addicted by this phenomena. We'll understand what these people like and then map out their minds and therefore show them only the stuff that they enjoy watching.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And that is why it is very interesting, right? Because if you have a superpower to see things around you and be able to solve that problem through code, then just picking random problem statements and then solving them through code is just a very, very good feeling to have.
And it's a highly paid skill.
It's a highly paid skill. I mean, money is a byproduct. It's really good money. But I mean, it's just a superpower to have in today's world.